speculation.
Reckless speculation. It is Reckless Speculation Thursday here on Mackey and Judd for all of you who celebrate, and that means we bring our friend from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department and the Scoop Podcast. Inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams, Darren Doogie Wolfson. Now, Ross Brendel put a scoop out on Twitter the other day that Darren Doogie Wolfson has signed a new contract to remain with Hubbard Broadcasting. Is that correct?
Sources told Ross Brendel he's the new scoop master. Yeah, Phil, he is spot on. Now, I've not officially put pen to paper, but yes, we have agreed in principle to a new 2-year deal.
Just don't say sign.
They actually wanted me back. There may be some people watching and listening right now saying, Stanley Hubbard? What are you doing? Rob Hubbard, what are you doing?
Did the Hubbards make you look them in the eye before committing to such a long-term lucrative contract?
Just don't say you've signed. You've agreed to terms. You got to be very careful, and nothing officially can go out
That's
until
true. Yeah,
a pen is put to paper.
Yeah, you can't. It's the media signing period doesn't officially start for another couple weeks, so you got to be careful.
And I think there are definitely questions about whether I can pass a physical. So yes, definitely at this point, agreed in principle. This is not technically official yet. But yeah,
what's
Ross,
the bonus structure, dude?
I don't think you necessarily jumped the gun. Yeah, that's something I still need to look at. It's in my inbox, Jed. I need to look at it. So there's still some things to figure out, but Ross is on the right track.
Amazing. So, all right, let's. I know you guys did a bunch of Timberwolves stuff on the Scoop session from a couple days ago. People can check that out. Mackey and Judd podcast feed, Score North YouTube channel. And by the way, if you are watching us on the Score North YouTube channel, thank you for one. I think we're up over 16,000 subscribers. Please click the subscribe button and the like button to help spread the word about Reckless Speculation Thursday. But the Dallas Mavericks got the offseason party started in a big way by trading for, and it amounts to be a 1-year flyer on Christian Wood, 6'10" big man, who's the last couple of years he's averaged around 18, 19 points, 10 rebounds. He can pass, he can shoot threes. He can score at the rim. A really interesting complementary piece now to Luka Doncic. But it's a 1-year flyer on Christian Wood. They didn't have to give up a whole lot. And so the offseason transactional party has officially begun. I don't know. What do you think this move means for teams like the Timberwolves? You're trying not to let teams climb too far ahead of you. You don't want to get passed up by teams that are behind you. But this was an interesting move by a team in the vicinity of where the Timberwolves were in the regular season, Dukes.
Yeah, before I get to the Wood transaction, Phil, don't forget about JaMychal Green, because there could be a Green Minnesota connection depending on what takes place with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But there was a transaction at least agreed to in principle. Denver, Calvin Booth, my guy Calvin there in Denver now as the Pobo, and Oklahoma City, where JaMychal Green is now a member of the Thunder. But, you know, that one doesn't really move the needle, but that would be an interesting name, JaMychal Green, if he hits the market to keep an eye on with the Wolves, depending on some moving parts with Tim Connolly's roster. But certainly Christian Wood helps Dallas. It took him a while to find his footing. He's an example of a guy that you don't want to give up on anyone after 1 or 2 years. For some of these guys, it takes a bit longer, especially guys that play the 4 or the 5 position. He bounced around, went to Detroit, figured things out, then signed a big deal in Houston. You noted it, Phil. He is entering the final year of his deal. Certainly signs point to Houston at pick 3, landing either, I don't think Jabari Smith is going to be on the board, the power forward from Auburn. To me, Jabari probably goes 1 to Orlando, but if he doesn't go 1, he'll go 2. But that means Houston ends up at pick 3, either with Chet Holmgren, Minneapolis native, who, by the way, begins his Orlando Magic visit today. So there's a mini scoop for you. He will be there today and tomorrow. Jabari Smith visited Orlando last week, or Paolo Banchero, the power forward from Duke. If I had to bet right now, it goes Jabari Smith 1 to Orlando, Holmgren 2 to OKC, then Banchero to Houston. Banchero was in Houston yesterday for a workout. So Houston is about to take Banchero. Do they really need Christian Wood in the final year of his deal? Houston now gets a first-round pick, albeit late in the first round. I feel bad for my guy David Roddy of Minneapolis Breck High School. He's on his way to Dallas right now for a workout tomorrow. I'm sure he thought going there, yeah, maybe I have a chance to go pick 26. Well, Dallas no longer has pick 26. Then they got all these expiring contracts. Houston inevitably will buy out at least one or multiple of those contracts. So the question locally is, did the Wolves have strong interest in Christian Wood? Phil, my sense is no. And I don't even know how they would have made the match work. You would have given up pick 19, and you would have had to give up Patrick Beverley. Would you have done Beverley plus pick 19 for Christian Wood? Me personally, I would not have.
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
That's the equivalent, though, because Houston was looking for expiring contracts. It clearly looks like they were not willing to take on any long-term money. I texted with somebody that I know at the Mavericks. This person's sense this morning was there wasn't this thick market for Christian Wood. But I'm with you. He produces. We don't know if he produces on a winning team. He's played on a lot of losing teams. At least when he's had a big role, he's played heavy minutes on a bunch of losing teams. But he has been productive. But my sense is there weren't a whole lot of teams chasing him with the Houston Rockets. But I really like the fit for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah. So here's a question. This is getting kind of in the weeds, but I think Wolves fans are gonna like this. So next summer, 2023, a year from now, if the Timberwolves just run this whole thing back, basically, they can clear, with D'Angelo Russell coming off the books, Pat Bev, Malik Beasley, they can clear $50 to $60 million in open cap space, enough for and again, who are the free agents available? Can you even coax one into signing? But you could also have cap space for a trade for a player that makes a lot of money too. So to me, it's really appealing as Anthony Edwards goes into year 4 a year from now, and Karl Anthony Towns presumably starting a Supermax contract, that the rest of your slate is kind of blank. Jaden McDaniels going to get a bump at some point. So how do the Timberwolves weigh that appeal one summer from now with, hey, it'd be nice to take a jump now, but to take a jump now via trade or free agency, you might have to get players on multi-year contracts. If you trade D'Lo, do you trade D'Lo for a guy on a multi-year contract that eats into that flexibility next summer? So I guess my question is, how do you weigh the opportunity you could have next summer with the want to get better right now?
That is the fascinating question, Phil. Now, you could still trade D'Lo, bring back an expiring contract. I mean, if you look at a bunch of guys on the trade market, guys like Jeremy Grant, Miles Turner, those are expiring contracts, right? We note that D'Angelo Russell is an expiring contract, but you could move D'Lo or somebody else for an expiring contract, still maintaining that sort of flexibility. But you are right. Cat Supermax won't kick in until after that. So Cat has 2 years left on his deal. I think signs point to the Wolves offering the Supermax here in a few weeks. Cat signing the Supermax, but that would be the 4 years tacked on to his 2 remaining years. And you're right, Jaden McDaniels is going to get paid. Anthony Edwards is going to get the max, but that won't kick in till thereafter. So, your time to really do some stuff is next summer. You didn't even mention, Naz Reid, Jalen Noel. I mean, there's a bunch of expiring pieces. They wouldn't exercise, in your scenario, the Malik Beasley team option for the 23-24 season. So, yeah, if they want, with Beverly's expiring, Russell's expiring, they could run this thing back. They have their mid-level exception to play with if they want to add size that way. Or maybe they add size 1 week from tonight at pick 19. You could take Walker Kessler, the big man from Auburn. I think it's very, very likely he's going to be on the board at pick 19 if you wanted to go that route. Although, you look at Golden State, now maybe Golden State's the outlier because of Steph Curry, but Golden State doesn't have a big roster, at least of the guys that play. Now, Boston in the regular season played big at times, especially after they brought in, Daniel Tice, but they don't always play big. So, we fixate on the Wolves having the smallest roster in the NBA, but how much size do you really need?
Yeah, well, it's one thing if you're playing small with Steph Curry too, though.
I know, that's what
how good can Anthony Edwards get is the question there.
Yeah, well, yes. You need Anthony Edwards to rebound Andrew Wiggins is rebounding right now, right? But if you wanted to still play small ball, you could go that route, right? You don't need necessarily to bring in a 7-footer, or certainly don't need to bring in a 7-footer at pick 19. If you wanted to bring in a free agent like Isaiah Hartenstein, a guy that can play 10 to 15 minutes a night, you can find ways to make a move like that. But that is still something, Phil, that I am digging on. I think there's a lot of appeal to having maximum flexibility 1 year from now.
Yeah.
But you can still make moves now. You're just bringing back expiring contracts. But, like, I don't know how you would bypass that opportunity to have all that flexibility 1 year from now. You mentioned it. Like, you can make a trade with all that cap space. It's not about signing the biggest name free agent. Maybe you would go that route. But, like, to have all that trade flexibility, like, I have a hard time believing Tim Connolly is going to say, you know what, let me throw that away. So, like, I think there's going to be a way where he's going to maintain, if it's not max, a good amount of flexibility next summer while still looking to do something now. Like, undoubtedly, Phil, they are conducting trade talks. They 100% are. Now, it's hard for me to pinpoint who has interest in D'Lo. Like I've mentioned for over a week now, Washington is a logical landing spot for a lead guard. Like, I think Washington is going to do something. Maybe that's Malcolm Brogdon from Indiana. Maybe that's restricted free agent Colin Sexton from Cleveland. Maybe it's somebody else. But like I was told, Washington, as of now, just isn't interested in D'Angelo Russell. So, like, really, who has interest in D'Angelo Russell? Would the Wolves have to attach a sweetener to move Russell? I would not do that myself. He's an expiring contract. Why would you attach any sort of sweetener, even if it was pick 40?
And he's
I'm
good,
not giving up pick 40 to move D'Lo.
Yeah, he's a good player. Yeah.
He's fine. He was good for the first 50 games, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then he fell off the final 30-ish games. Great in the play-in game against the Clippers. Horrendously bad in the playoff series against Memphis. But yeah, overall, he's fine. He's not a bad player. So, like, to me, I would never, this is just me talking, I would never attach any sort of sweetener to get off D'Lo's contract. I would not do that. I'd be surprised if Connolly did that.
Connolly also seems to me like a very smart, calculated guy. It makes way more sense to spend a year observing, and then, like, he knows the Wolves from his time in Denver, but he doesn't know, like, internally the whole thing, right? The staff makeup, things like that. With the way things run now, I would guess, Dukes, that you're exactly right. I would guess he's going to spend a year sort of observing, learning, and then make moves, especially since it sets up so well to do exactly that. So I think all signs point to the logical thing, because he doesn't seem at all like an impulsive guy, that if there's a great deal to be had, he'll make it now, but that he wouldn't mind basically just standing pat. You know, this team's not bad. Watching it, and then a year from now saying, I know enough now to proceed with some bigger moves.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off what you guys are both saying here, in that I don't think D'Lo long term. I think he's a player that can get you, much like, you know, Brooklyn won 42 games with him and the Wolves won 46. I think him as a highly paid initiator and high usage player, I think he's the guy that gets you to the 40 to 45, 46 win range. I don't think him in that role, I don't think you're winning 55. And that's the next step here they have to figure out. But I'm not, like, to Doogie's point, I'm not going to attach a first round pick to get rid of an expiring contract.
They did that once.
Well, they did it with, wasn't Wiggins had multiple years left on the contract. Yeah, but they still had to
attach a sweetener to get rid of him.
Yeah, but that's a totally different scenario, because you're saying, okay, we need to get out from underneath like 3 years of Andrew Wiggins. Right. We can't do this anymore. It's 1 year of D'Lo. You're still going to be very competitive if you just run this thing back. And there might be some moves you can make. Maybe you trade him, like Doogie said, if you feel like your roster is better, you know, maybe it's a 2 or 3 way deal, and you think Miles Turner makes you better than D'Angelo Russell with Jordan McLaughlin playing more point guard minutes. Like, and I don't know if that's true, but okay. And then you get the flexibility you would have anyways next year, because Miles Turner's an expiring contract. Could you hang on to D'Lo for a year, play out the last year of his contract? He's going to be motivated going into free agency, and maybe swap, you know, $16 million Malik Beasley for another piece of some kind. Like, there's some things you can do without blockbusters here, and I would lean toward being very careful about adding multi-year contracts that don't move the needle at the expense of next year's flexibility. So that's my 2 cents on it.
All right, well, on Beasley, I would keep an eye on him. Like, I brought this up with Judd on Tuesday, Phil. Like, and I get it. D'Lo is the number one guy we're talking about when it comes to Wolves trade scenarios, but Malik Beasley needs to be in the conversation as well. Like D'Lo clear-cut 1, but Malik Beasley clear-cut 2. So let's keep an eye on potential Malik Beasley trade scenarios. We know at the trade deadline, Boston for sure had some interest. I've heard of the Knicks having interest in the past. Tim Connolly is smart and calculated. The one thing I'm still trying to figure out is the dialogue with Chris Finch, because Chris Finch has knowledge that he can pass along to Tim, and what sort of divide was created when D'Lo was benched in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. How does that dynamic play out? D'Lo is an interesting guy, Phil. This was another point I brought up on Tuesday, but you weren't part of the conversation. Like, I know somebody who's worked for the Wolves for 25 years. He's been around all the personalities. Gary Trent Sr., right? KG, many others. I can go up and down the list. He would rank D'Angelo Russell atop all those guys. And I'll just use the word interesting. Maybe there's other words we could choose to use.
Pain in the ass factor? Or
he's not a bad guy.
Quirky?
So I want to make that very clear. Not a bad guy. Quirky? Yeah, quirky would be a good word. Yeah. Quirky's a very good word. Yeah.
Well, then he, of course, there was and I don't even know how much of a report it was, but Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer put out an updated mock draft, and in the, at pick 19, the first sentence was something about the Timberwolves are shopping. It wasn't in detail, but he said the Timberwolves are shopping D'Angelo Russell. Now, Kevin is a reporter who's very plugged in, and he does break some news. And I think it was kind of a half report, but it got out there. It made the rounds around the aggregators, and D'Lo picked up on it a few hours later and said, "Hey, world, I'm shopping," or something.
So he did, and then he deleted said tweet. It's definitely a thing.
Okay.
Kevin is really, really good. A friend of this show. Mm-hmm. We all know Kevin, at least via Twitter DMs. And you guys have had him on at least once, if not multiple times. So you've had a face-to-face through the computer screen conversation with him. So there is a relationship there. I wonder about his choosing of the word shopping. Do I think D'Angelo Russell can be had in a trade? 100%. Do I have the sense right now that Tim Connolly is outright shopping D'Angelo Russell? I'm not quite there. And I say that because there's an Eastern Conference team, not the Washington Wizards, but you can make a case, can use a lead guard. It's not the Knicks either, by the way, because to me, the Knicks still make the most sense for a D'Angelo Russell trade.
Come on.
It's not the Knicks.
Let's see where you're
not
going.
The Wizards.
Is it a playoff team?
Who is it?
Is it
yes, on a playoff team.
Is it a playoff team?
Yeah. Does that include playing teams too, though?
Well,
just to make people think even more?
Philadelphia?
All right, so let me keep going here. All right.
It's the Sixers.
This team has a high-ranking official in the front office who I'm buddies with, and this person told me 2 days ago he doesn't get the sense that the Wolves are, quote, shopping D'Angelo Russell, but just reiterated what I just said, that does he think if they wanted to acquire D'Angelo Russell, they could? 100%.
I love this. Inject all of this.
But I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I'm sure that Conley's gotten a ton of calls, right? Like, I mean, that all tracks. That all makes sense. Dukes.
Well, you say a ton of calls, like.
Well, he's probably getting calls on guys.
Who's pounding down the door for D'Angelo Russell?
Nobody is pounding on the door.
Pounding on the door, but I'm saying there's probably a ton of dialogue going on between non-playoff teams or teams that are out of the playoffs now, just in general, about players in general.
Well, that's what happens. That's what happens this time of the year, 1 week before the draft.
Exactly.
It's definitely happening at Mayo Clinic Square because they have picks 19, 40, 48, and 50.
Yep.
Right, so when you have 4 draft picks, yes, a large part of these trade talks involve at least one of those picks.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, I have a question real quick. So just for fun here. So you brought up the name Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's a really interesting player. He's not. I don't think he's the shooter and scorer necessarily. That they average around the same amount of points, but I like he's a bigger guard. He's 6'5". He's not going to raise. He's not. At some point, you need another 7-footer, but I like having a guy who's big and he's probably about 30 pounds heavier than D'Lo. Malcolm Brogdon plays on a losing team right now. He came, by the way, he was developed by Milwaukee initially and then went to Indiana. And he has, let's see here, 3 years left in his contract, $22, $21, and $23 million. So he makes $10 million less than D'Lo makes right now. I don't know what that trade would look like if you need a third team. So we can talk about those details later. But would Malcolm Brogdon for D'Angelo Russell, independent of any other pieces being swapped, would you be a better basketball team?
I would rather have Malcolm Brogdon. I do have some health concerns there.
Yeah, he only plays
there
like
are
50
some medical
games.
red flags. So I would need to trust my medical staff, that physical, that all checks out okay. But just on the surface, without a deep dive, would I rather have Brogdon or Russell? I'd rather have Brogdon.
Yeah, I think I would too.
But if you're Indiana, if you're Rick Carlisle, they just gave him all that money.
Yep.
Now, if you're Indiana, maybe you move Brogdon because Tyrese Halliburton is your new lead guard, that you're looking to move Brogdon for a forward, right? For a big, not necessarily Brogdon for another guard like D'Lo.
Be a three-way trade.
So,
But I will say, Phil, Indiana is a very, very fascinating team to watch. Like, they're going to do some stuff. What happens with Brogdon? What happens with Miles Turner? I would definitely keep an eye on Indiana.
So, Dukes, to back up though, so it's fun to speculate sometimes recklessly about potential trades, but for the best thing for the Wolves, does it make the most sense probably not to make that move now to allow the contract to expire a year from now, and then, you know, to go back to what we discussed on Tuesday, have all that cap space? Because, I mean, it does seem like if you're strategic about this, that as much fun as a trade might be in the next few weeks or months, that the reality is it might be the most responsible thing and set you up really, really well to wait until next June to make a move. Because if D'Lo walks, now, to your point, you're flush with cash. Cap room.
You are, but I think you can have the best of both worlds.
Okay.
I think there's at least a trade or two out there where you can still maintain maximum flexibility July 2023. Okay. The Western Conference isn't slowing down. So to me, the status quo doesn't necessarily work the trajectory that this team is on. Like, if they don't win at least 46 games next regular season, if they don't avoid the play-in tournament, to me, it's a credit to them for raising the bar, but to me, that would be a disappointing season, right? Or I guess if you're in the play-in, if you're the 7 or the 8, but then you advance, then you somehow upset the 1 or the 2 seed, okay, we can have a different conversation. But like, if you're stuck in mediocrity, for lack of a better term, but that's pretty much what you are if you're the 7 or the 8 seed, right? You're like team 15 or team 16, you're like halfway, right? You're right in the middle of the league. Half the teams are worse than you, half the teams are better than you. So to me, you're stuck in mediocrity if you're playing in the play-in tournament. But like, the Lakers are going to be better, I think, next year. Maybe not, but I think the Lakers will be better. New Orleans will be better. I'm almost positive of that. Mm-hmm. All right, Portland, maybe not. Houston, maybe not. Oklahoma City, maybe not. Sacramento, who the heck knows what's going on out there. But I did like the Sabonis trade for them. I think Brown's a pretty good hire for them, too, as coach. But there's a lot of dysfunction in Sacramento. I get that. But, like, who are you jumping over? Like, how are you climbing higher than the 7 seed? We know the Clippers are not going to be in the play-in next year, right? So, like, how exactly? I'm just saying that based on Kawhi Leonard being back for a full season. And I get it. Injuries can change the dynamic. We could have a different conversation December, January, February. But as I look at it right now, like, how are the Wolves jumping above the 7 seed?
Well, Utah,
because that needs to be the goal this next
Utah
season.
and Denver are in an interesting spot. I think Denver personnel-wise isn't going to lose anything, but they just lost their president of basketball operations.
They did, but they get back Jamal Murray.
Well, it'll be tough to jump them. Utah's the one to watch because if they, I don't think they're going to trade Donovan Mitchell, but if the new coach, if Donovan Mitchell remains unhappy, what could happen there? I had questions about Dallas, but they might have just answered them by the trade they made for Christian Wood. And then maybe I guess you're hoping that Chris Paul being 37 years old and a DeAndre Ayton trade makes the Suns worse. But are they going to be, they won 64 games. Or even if they drop 10 games, they're a 55-win team.
They are now. What happens with DeAndre Ayton? He wants max money. Doesn't seem like Phoenix wants to pay him max money. But even if you move Ayton, I would think they're getting back ready now talent, that they're not taking back, draft picks, whatever it might be. Like, I would think they're trying to bring back pieces to help now when you're paying, as you mentioned, Chris Paul all that money at 37 years old. Utah is interesting. I'm rooting for my guy Sean Sweeney, St. Paul native, to get that job. He interviewed for that head coaching job last week. They've interviewed about 10 people. So he's a long shot, but I'd like to see them hire the Dallas Mavericks assistant Sean Sweeney. But yeah, Utah could be interesting, but it's really, really hard. Like, Dallas got better, too, when they brought in Dinwiddie after they moved Porzingis. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think Jalen Brunson's re-signing with them, that he's not going to join his dad with the Knicks, even though his dad is now an assistant coach once again for Tom Thibodeau. But that Jalen Brunson is going to re-sign in Dallas. So if they bring back Jalen Brunson and with Dinwiddie and now with Wood, like, Dallas is going to be better than the Wolves.
The West is
like,
ridiculous.
I feel pretty good about that.
The teams
it's hard.
Dukes, the teams that are let's put the Clippers. The Clippers were 2 games above 500, but from the Clippers all the way down, so the 8 seed all the way down to the 15 seed. So the teams that either didn't make the playoffs or were in the play-in, like you said, Clippers are getting Kawhi back. Pelicans just traded for C.J. McCollum, halfway through last season, and they get Zion Williamson back. The Spurs are feisty and are the Spurs and always find a way to claw their way to competitive games. The Lakers aren't just going to sit around with, LeBron James getting another year older. Portland has Damian Lillard and room to make moves. So the Wolves are in a good position, but the West is absurd outside of like 3 teams at the bottom.
Agree. Yeah, I mean, outside of Houston, OKC, and at some point, because I like Jalen Green, I like Banchero, like Houston may make a jump. Not necessarily next season, but pretty darn soon. Heck, same for OKC at some point with all those assets they've accumulated. Like, at some point, OKC is going to make some sort of jump up. I'm not convinced Portland is doing anything anytime soon. Like, to me, the next move is actually trading Damian Lillard.
Yeah,
that it gets to that point. He hasn't asked for a trade yet, but that it eventually gets to that point where he says, get me out. But yeah, the West is as deep as ever. Yeah. We've been talking about this for 2 years now, but now, like, this third year of this conversation, like, the West isn't slowing down. It's only getting better and deeper. So if you're the Wolves, status quo just doesn't work. It really doesn't. They need to add toughness. They need to add some rebounding help. So, like, moves need to be made. Like, merely re-signing Taurean Prince for the mid-level isn't enough. Then bringing somebody in at pick 19. Let's say they end up with E.J. Liddell at pick 19. Or Tari Eason at pick 19. If those are your big moves this summer, re-signing Prince, drafting Liddell or Eason at pick 19, it's not enough, Phil. It's just not. Like, to me, best case, they're back in the play-in at seed 7.
Dukes, where is is Kirilloff, and how long do the Twins have to sit on this guy at AAA, just absolutely destroying pitching before he gets called up at some point?
The numbers are just absurd, right?
Oh, God.
A 400 batting average since he was sent down, 10 home runs. Like, he's so good. He'll be in the lineup again. It's a day game today. Josh Winder on the mound for the Saints today, so he's close to rejoining the Twins. Kyle Garlick in the Saints lineup today on a rehab assignment, so he's relatively close to rejoining the Twins. So there are roster moves that need to be made with those guys. But clearly, it has to happen soon. I will tell you, I went back and forth with his dad. Clearly his dad is biased, but, his dad's wondering, okay, and the family's really religious. Dad's not going to say anything too crazy.
Sure.
But, there are questions there, right? Like, what more does my son need to do to rejoin the Major League organization? Plus, I'll add Miguel Sano. So I have a Miguel Sano update. We did not do a pre-show meeting, so let me just give you the Miguel Sano update. So that's another roster move that we think needs to be made at some point. Let me read for you verbatim.
Is this a press release, or are you getting this from a press release, or are you doing reporting here? This
is actual reporting. Yeah, okay. This is not me regurgitating a press release like some people do.
It's a scoop segment, damn it.
Hi, Darren. I was with Sano today. This was yesterday. He looks great. Running, fielding ground balls, hitting on the field.
Great job.
So Miguel Sano is getting close to heading out on a rehab assignment. So that's another roster move at some point the next couple weeks that seemingly needs to be made.
Love it. Love it. All right, empty the bag here. What other scoops are you sitting on this Reckless Speculation Thursday?
It's all about the NBA draft, right, Phil? I mean, 1 week from tonight, Kendall Brown, Cottage Grove native, in with the Cleveland Cavaliers today, in with the Charlotte Hornets tomorrow. I mentioned Roddy in with Dallas tomorrow. He was in with the Wolves yesterday. The Wolves have another group workout today. I'll have the full list later, but Max Christie, Michigan State, is one of the players in today. Jake LaRavia, Wake Forest, climbing up draft boards. He's another player in today, as is Marcus Weathers of SMU. So presumably they have 6 guys in today. Normally these group workouts are 6 players. Those are 3 of the 6. In with the Timberwolves today, Kennedy Chandler, a good point guard from Tennessee, in with the Timberwolves on Saturday.
There he is, Darren Doogie Wolfson, inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams here on Reckless Speculation Thursday. Great stuff, Doogs.
All right, boys. Appreciate the flexibility. Thank you. I apologize for being high maintenance. We're watching the neighbor's dog. I forgot. Had to bring the dog back to her house for the day because Scooby, our dog, and the neighbor's dog can't hang in our house without some adult supervision.
Daycare
because it would
for
get
the dog.
ugly.
Tell
They'd fight over
tell
food.
them not to be cheap. Tell those people to get their own dog place. Take the dog there. Get that dog out of my house.
Not all people have the lavish lifestyles of Darren Doogie Wolfson and Judd Zolgad here. Okay, so they not.
Oh yeah, that lavish lifestyle had said neighbor watching our dog last weekend. We were up in Wake Park for the Droogie baseball tournament, so it was only right that we return the favor. But I forgot, so I had to bring this beautiful golden retriever. She's a sweetheart. I had to bring her back home. I was playing with her for a little bit, lost track of time, had to bring the younger one to camp. So thank you for the flexibility.
All right, Dukes. We'll see you next week. Darren Doogie Wolfson.
See you, bye.
From 5 Eyewitness News. A shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Been around for over 100 years, helping businesses maximize their success. And you can find a full list of industries Federated protects at their website, federatedinsurance.com. And they're all about the 4 cornerstones of equity, integrity, teamwork, and respect. These 4 cornerstones create the foundation that supports all interactions and decision-making through Federated. All right, that's a wrap on Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Woo!
NBA offseason
That was a lot. That was good.
The finals aren't even over yet, and we've already got blockbuster trades. We got, I think the league year officially opens up on July 1st, and so that's when the fireworks are set to begin.
I'm telling you, in this league, that, in my opinion, best time of year.
It's so much fun. Oh, it's so much fun.
It's nuts on speculation.
Yep. So, all right, that is a wrap for us here on this Reckless Speculation Thursday. Action Movie Rewind tomorrow, and little Feedback Friday. So get your comments, questions, concerns, critiques into the Score North app, where we're also doing the Purple Daily Getaway to Miami all month long, too. If you want to win a trip, week 6, to go down to Miami to see Minnesota, Miami, we got the tickets for you. We got the flight. We got the travel, everything. You bring your own white linen pants, bring your own Don Johnson V-neck and sunglasses, and all you have to do is open the Score North app, register, and enter to win through listener rewards, and we'll draw a winner at the end of the month. Mackey and Judd.